I've talked to a few people about this, and I've got lots of emails that I've not been able to respond to yet, but I wanted to get this through tonight first. You know, it's not just public schools, and I know the people on this board know this. It's not just public schools speaking out about this. I know Dr. Myers has brought up private schools, but tonight, as we're in this meeting, there's a town hall meeting that's virtual with private school and homeschool parents. Homeschool parents are speaking out against this because just like we have accountability measures, if they start taking public funds, they will, and they should have accountability measures, because when you take public funds, we should all answer the same way. And that's one of the beauties that attracts some homeschool parents or private school parents. There's a different choice there. That is school choice, and that will take that choice from them to have something a little bit different. So it's not just public schools that are saying we don't want this. It's private schools, it's homeschool parents. And so when you've got all these different people in education saying stop, I hope our legislators listen, and like you mentioned Thursday night, Mr. Luttrell, at least bring everybody to the table and really look at how it's going to affect everyone.
I'm just going to talk a little bit about a couple of things. Within this, he spoke of Article 11, Section 12 of the Constitution in Tennessee. The only authority that controls education actually is the Tennessee General Assembly. The Tennessee General Assembly creates the statutes, which then determine what the State Board of Education can do, what the local Board of Education can do, and we are actually within boundaries of what we can and we cannot do as a board. That includes the State Board and the local board. So the control of education really is at the state level with the General Assembly by Constitution, and they give us our powers down here. That's why all the emails that I've been getting, and I'm like the chairwoman that I've gotten so many, it's hard to kind of keep up with everything, saying, please don't let this happen. We don't have control over that. The only control that we have is that we can speak out and say we're not in favor of this. And so a couple of things I'd like to address is that there is a fiscal note to this bill. And for those who may not understand what that is whenever you have a bill that goes through the Tennessee General Assembly, they have to do research on what it's going to cost the state if they pass that bill. Within that fiscal note, and there's actually been 2 of them that have been put out very recently, but ultimately it talks about the fact of what will increase statewide. But here are some of the comments that were made. This one, annual growth estimates for the program are conservative due to the lack of sufficient data. So even though they're giving us some numbers here, it's a shot in the dark because they really don't have a lot of data to do that. Another thing is Title I students. So if you have a Title I student and they take their voucher to a private school, that affects federal grants. We're not sure how that'll affect local schools because it's the way in which the funding is done on that. Again, another comment that was made in here is the idea, again, we don't know what this is ultimately going to cost down the road. Another thing that a lot of people don't understand is that the TISA formula has a base formula, but the base formula is just a base formula. Then there are things that the student, it begins to build. So, for example, if they have a certain type of need or whatever, that can be built in to this. So, for example, a student, even though they might get 70, 75, we're not unclear, are they going to get the extra money if they have certain, if they're disadvantaged students, if they are special needs students. So that's unclear. Some of the questions I have asked is this: if it's true school choice, if this is true school choice, are the boundaries of the county going to remain? The argument is yes, but what if you're talking that the kids can go wherever they want to? Will a student from another county be able to come in to, say, Wilson County, because we do have schools that are doing well, could they come across that county line and use that voucher here? What happens when we lose those seats to our own? So there's a lot of, they say, no, this is not going to happen, but it's in flux right now. How will the bill change? before it actually goes into either conference or goes into the desk. And then for me, I've made it very clear, I don't want same beverage, different cup. I want true parent choice. If you're a homeschool parent, you get to do whatever you want in homeschooling, and there's no strings attached. Private schools, I don't want this to go into the private schools, and I've heard from them as well. I don't want this, because where dollars go, as Chairwoman said, strings follow. That's just the nature of the beast. It just happens in every state that it's ever been done in. Strings will follow down. So again, you can go online, you can look at the bill, and you can read the fiscal reports. There's 2 of them to date, and both of them are different, by the way. There's 2 different versions of how much it's going to cost. Thank you.
Yes, the first comment that I had is also on the fiscal notes, and there are basically 3 versions that are out there. There's the governor's version, there's the Senate version, and there's the House omnibus version. And the House version has all kinds of other things that are added into it, things that we've been asking for a very long time. And so part of what I want to say is that the way that the House omnibus bill was presented a minute before the deadline, less than, I think it was 16 hours or 18 hours before the committee was supposed to discuss and debate the bill. A member of the subcommittee asked that it be rolled for a week in order to provide an opportunity for members to study and make an informed decision, and that was voted down. The leadership stacked the committee, sent in a member of leadership to make sure that they would have the vote and have it go their way. The entire situation was set up to prevent there from being true study and discussion. And to me, that is anti-democratic. The point of our democratic process is for us to elect representatives to have discussion and debate. And there's lots of discussion and debate over, what's right and what's wrong with vouchers that's going on. But where the rubber meets the road is in that bill that's going to be voted on. And if you don't allow our representatives an adequate opportunity to discuss and debate that material and potentially make changes to it, then to me, that's a violation of the spirit of democracy. If it's not, in the letter of the law, but it is certainly a violation of the spirit of democracy. Going back to the fiscal notes, the 3 different versions of the bill, we don't know what it'll look like when it comes out of the conference committee. We don't know which one of these versions is going to end up on the governor's desk. It's entirely possible that the House will pass their version, the Senate will pass their version, and it will come out of conference committee looking like the governor's version. We don't know. The governor's version is incredibly concerning because after year 2, there are no limits on who would qualify. The numbers that I've seen, the fiscal note on that version, equates to one estimate, enough money to give every teacher in the state of Tennessee a 10% raise. If we've got the money to pay Tennessee teachers a competitive salary, why aren't we doing it already? Why is the state not investing that money so that our teachers who live, especially on the borders with Kentucky or with Georgia, and over in Memphis, where the northern Mississippi districts are paying them more, also, you've got several places where that makes an enormous difference for local school districts in whether or not they can hire enough teachers to staff their schools adequately. If the state has the money to do that, why have we not been doing it all along? And this is the same thing with the omnibus bill in the House. And the fiscal note there, the House version does have better controls that are built in. However, they're saying we're gonna give you this additional money, local schools, for insurance. If the money is there to give us the money for insurance, don't tie it to the vouchers. If the money is there for public schools, we need to be investing that money in our public schools. The impact on local funding, this is something else that Dr. Myers mentioned that I think is very important and that we need to be cognizant of, is that if the boundaries, if our county school system boundaries are removed, this has an impact on local funding, because the way that the bills are written at this time, state money will follow the student that first year and will cover potentially the difference between what the state is paying and what our local government pays. But after that, we're on the hook for the difference. And when I say we, I mean Wilson County taxpayers will be paying for the kid who lives in Hermitage to cross the county line and come to Green Hill High School. And if you think that there aren't going to be a line of people waiting to come to Green Hill High School, Gladeville Middle School, and Mount Juliet Middle School, and I'm just naming the ones that are probably going to be open zone, they would be lining up to go to any of our schools, because we have outstanding schools, but not all of our schools have the space for any extra students to come in. Well, our schools aren't going to have any space at all if we are forced by the state to open up our school district. And when that money starts to leave, and we have to make up the difference between whatever the state brings in and what our local dollar is, what our local government is providing, how's it going to be made up? That's going to be right here in Wilson County, and that's going to be our property taxes. If we want to maintain what we're able to do, it's going to mean that our county commission will have to bear that burden. And the legislature will say, well, we didn't raise your taxes to make this happen. Your county commission raised your taxes. Well, county commission and the school board were put in an impossible position by the legislation.
We did have a motion and a second to accept this, right? So we are in discussion. I'd just like to say that I talked to my representative, Representative Hale, a few years ago. I mean, he lives over in DeKalb County, and he represents DeKalb, Cannon, Smith, I think maybe Jackson, Trousdale, and a little portion of Wilson County where I live. And a few years ago, whenever they gerrymandered the lines, they put us, my section of the county out there, Mr. Fulcher, where you live, over in that district. And I had a good conversation with Representative Hale about this, and a really good conversation. But I've said all this to say this. I don't know that anything other than rezoning that's come before this board, as long as I've been on it, that I've had more people talk to me about this particular piece of legislation. And I'm sure you all are just like I am. You've been bombarded with emails and text messages from the constituents. What bothers me more than anything is that Senator Pody, Representative Lynn, and Representative Boyd, I don't think they're listening to the constituents. There's an overwhelming majority of the people in Wilson County that's opposed to this. But they don't seem to be listening to us. And that bothers me more than anything. And they're all friends of mine. We just don't happen to agree on this particular piece of legislation. But I don't think they're listening. And there's a lot of things, and Representative Hale shared this with me. They're changing things every day. They're throwing different pieces of things out there, like Ms. Pfeiffer said about the insurance, about teacher retention. They're doing everything that they can to throw some more pork in this to try to get people to come along and support it. Now, Wilson County, we might be able to survive this for a little while. I'm not going to say that we couldn't because of where we're at. But these surrounding counties, our friends in Trousdale, in Smith, DeKalb, the smaller counties across the state, from Mountain City to Memphis, this going to hurt them. Hurt them bad. It's going to hurt them bad. And anybody that doesn't think that they're not going to go across lines to come into other counties that are high-performing districts, anybody that don't believe that, you're living in a fantasy world. And I guarantee you, when that starts happening, I don't know how our constituents are going to react to that when our schools start filling up with kids that don't live in Wilson County. And Mr. Luttrell, I won't be here. But I don't know how you all are going to be able to deal with that, because you're going to have to take them because of the money. You're going to have to follow the money. There's just a whole lot of things about this program that's not good. And I think Dr. Myers said it a while ago. She's seen it from how it's happened in Louisiana. We know what it's done in Arizona. We know what it's done up in Wisconsin. We know what it's done in other states. We see what's happened with it. And somebody been sold a bill of goods on this, and it's not in the best interest of the boys and girls in the state of Tennessee. And that's the bottom line, and that's who we're here to protect, the ones in Wilson County. But it's not only Wilson County, it's all across the state. You know, and if this is such a good thing, and they think it's such a good thing, and Dr. Myers made this comment to me here a little while ago. If they think it's so good, why don't they put it on a referendum and let the people vote for it across the state of Tennessee? See what kind of vote they get. And then I'm going to say one other thing. And I think maybe it was Kerry said this about democracy. And I guess y'all think I do. I sit around and watch a lot of television. I watch a lot of sports. But last night, I saw another program on CNN. And it highlighted the whole program was about the state of Tennessee and the democracy and what was coming out of Nashville. If you hadn't seen that, you need to go back and look at it too, because it's worth watching. CNN, last night. 2 good programs, back to back. And I probably wouldn't even known about them if somebody hadn't called and told me, said, you might want to watch these 2 programs coming on tonight. Hadn't been with that, I'd probably been watching a basketball game. But I was sure glad I watched them. Thank you.
I would like to add one more thing, and to be fair to both sides. We make a lot of policy, I noticed, in Tennessee, and it's very similar to Louisiana and Arizona, where we're making policies to fix school systems, but we're making it across the state. So in other words, we'll pass a bill for every district in the state when there are about 3 or 4 districts that they're trying to fix. There are 2, and I've talked to parents who are pro-voucher in districts like this, in New Orleans, etc. And so I would like people to see it from both sides. If you are a parent of a child who has no options because that district is failing, you're hopeless. I get it. Not Louisiana. Tennessee does have 2 programs in place right now for those particular counties, for Shelby, for Hamilton, for Davidson, where those parents can do it. So they have 2 different programs, one for the special needs and then one for people within that district. So I don't want to overlook those people because they do have significant needs, but don't make it a statewide thing. Fix the districts that need to be fixed. That's where I stand on that.
One-size-fits-all Band-Aids cause more problems than they fix anything. And, you know, just thinking about how quickly the 3rd grade retention got pushed through. And then, I mean, I talked to parents who were calling legislators after it happened, like, what was this? And it was well after it happened, and that was, 2-week special session that happened during. And I mean, I hope they are listening, because I can't imagine the calls that they'll get after this, Mr. Tomlinson, if this goes through. But I hope that people are calling before. So, Ms. McGee?
I just want to say that I do agree with what everyone has stated, and there's really not much left to share, except I do have deep concerns between what the discrepancy in what is or is not required between public, private, homeschool, and not knowing the final language, and then the fiscal impact on Wilson County schools. So I think everyone has pretty much laid out the concerns, and just wanted to share that I concur with those concerns, and I do appreciate Mr. Luttrell bringing this to us.
The fiscal and the money is a big thing for me, but I kind of like to take a step back and look at this from a different perspective, because we can only control what we can control. We can't control whether this bill is going to get passed, okay? But what we can control is making sure that we're creating an environment that our parents and our students won't want to go to private schools or home schools. So I ask us as a board, as in every situation that you vote in, think about how that can impact whether a student's going to stay or go. And what I'll say is, I would invite you, and if anyone doesn't know, my oldest son graduated from Wilson Central in 2020. My youngest son was at West Wilson when it was destroyed, but my youngest son's at Mount Juliet Christian Academy right now. And why is he there? He's not there because it's academically superior. You know, we retired here because we loved Wilson County. We loved the teachers. I love Stoner Creek, love West Wilson Middle School. But it was because of the COVID mandates and the possibility of vaccines. Okay, that's why I moved my son out, not because of anything that was going on with Wilson County school system, because it is great and I do love it. So I just challenge all of us up here, you know, maybe because I am there and I hear and I see people that come, and the reasons that they're leaving, all right, the reasons they're leaving public schools are real. You know, some of this is an over-sexualization of our kids in schools. Some of it's the books. Some of it's worrying about the mental health and where do parents fit in with getting that information. So if we truly, really care about this school choice, you have to look at it, and we have to do everything to save every student, whether there's funding for it or not. That's how I try to vote. I try to do what's best for Wilson County and for the people that live here in this community. So I just challenge us as a board, is whether this thing is approved or not, we've got to look at ourselves and figure out, okay, why would people leave? You know, why would people not want to go to one of our schools and go to homeschool or private school? And once we identify those, we probably need to adjust and figure out how we can make it a more amicable situation for everybody. But I agree with what everybody says, and this thing is on a train track going a certain direction. I think we got to stop it. We have to discuss. We got to get the people that know how it's really going to impact, look at the data, and especially the money. The money's out. It's outrageous. Please, if you want to educate yourself, all these things are on. You know, you can go back and watch the videos from inception to where they are now and the amendments, and just hear them talk about it. You'll learn so much. If it was simple as school choice, as you carrying your tax dollars to another school and that was it, we wouldn't be having all of this discussion. So, like I said, I think that some of the legislators need to reach back out to some of the directors, some of the teachers, some of the influencers in the communities, the mayors, and see what kind of impact it has, because I don't think anybody knows. And I don't want to approve or just sit by and not and go with something that in 5 years, you know, could really throw a lot of people in Tennessee, the state of Tennessee and Wilson County off the track. So thank you for bringing this resolution. You know, I support you, Director. And like I said, if the board members, let's just continue making Wilson County school system the best, so we don't have to worry if it is passed that our students won't leave.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, thank everyone for your comments. And I didn't bring this. I sat on this and watched it on purpose. You know, a lot of people brought up these resolutions almost immediately. I have studied this. I've studied all three versions. And just some of the things that's disheartening for me, I've made my career here. And I've been through all the requirements, all the testing, the additional testing, all the things that I went through as a teacher that we were saying then is not what's best for kids and for learning and to no avail. It's disheartening to see that they're willing to take that back years after the fact to get something through that does not pass common sense. I mean, that is disheartening for me as an educator and for our educators. They're throwing some things at us. You know, it was said to me, when we get done with this, you will have to like it. We're going to put things in there that y'all want. And they have called. They have reached out. Everything that they're putting in there should be in separate legislation in a different educational pact, because that's what's good for public schools and public teachers, period. Then we could go on and have this discussion. So that's disheartening to hear. And I'm going to say it. It's disheartening to hear those, you know, everybody wants to support teachers this time of year during elections. But to hear some of the comments that were made in our state, and nobody standing up a few months ago for our teachers in positions that they could have been to stand up, and some of them did. We're smarter than this. The pork is going to be to try to get us to accept it. I'm not accepting it. It may pass. If it passes, I'll follow the law. But I'm not accepting that this is good legislation. It's not good legislation. Some of the things that are missing, the testing. You know, how many times in years past have we said, well, we've got to do all this required testing? We've been testing our students more than the federal government requires in the state of Tennessee for years. That was put on us by the state because they wanted accountability, and we went along with it. So take it off. That should not be dependent upon the voucher. Go to the federal regs. Be glad to do that. We proved we can perform in that as well as the state. But that's part of it. And that's going to gain some support, and it should. Because there's parents, if you've ever had a third grade student, that was a lot of stress on our students. Now we've got fourth graders going through some of that. I'm saying take it off. Regardless of the ESA plan, take it off. The other thing, and I could go on, because I've spent too much time on this, to be honest. This thought of taking students out of district, one of the versions says will be required. I want to give you a walk down history lane. Ms. Thomason, you'll remember this. For years, the law would not allow you to take out district students. And then you've seen a change where they wanted us to allow us to, and our policy has said we will not. Now they're saying under one version, you're going to be required if you have room. Well, what's room? Well, they're going to certify what room is. They're going to be coming in and say, you got to take this number of students. And it's not, I get it. Trust me, we open our zones, they'll be here tomorrow. We could come out of this fine, money-wise, but there is a problem. One of the versions, and I think this is one of the Senate versions, talks about that you're going to get that money for 1 year, then they just go on your roll. Well, if they go on our roll based on ADM, that base, that $7,075, 30% of that is local tax dollars. I have heard more from residents and parents over this issue than anything I've dealt with in 3 years as your director of schools. That includes coming out of COVID. That includes the books. That includes the testing, the third grade retention. I am getting phone calls. I'm getting people walk up to me in public and say, stop this. Like Dr. Myers said, we don't have the ability to stop it. This is the action we can take, is to call out. And that's why I wanted to bring the resolution. If we end up funding, I'm going to give you a number. During COVID, we lost about 2,000 families. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that's my recollection. For various reasons, like Mr. Badilla mentioned. That's probably a pretty good, let's cut that in half and say 1,000. Well, if we're going to lose $5,400 of those thousands and we lose state money, put the math to that. So then we would open up our borders because they would say, you've got room, you have to. So then we're going to get that replaced 1 year, and then they're going to be on our ADM, and we're going to be educating them without their parents or guardians paying property tax. That's why it don't make common sense. This is the number one thing I've found that just defies the logic of how our state's set up, how we govern taxation. It's a problem. Those are 2 points. And they have put us, somebody said, they've put us in a bad spot. They're going to want to put us against each other as a community. And they know. Some of them know. But can they withstand the pressure that's being put on them? The caption bill's perfect. Let's study it for a year. I'll be on board. That's what should be done. There's been a few things happen in Tennessee history, and this will go down as one of those things, in my professional opinion, that has turned the track we're going down. Do we have problems? Absolutely. I do not believe any kid should sit in a failing school. I don't believe that. So I get that. But we've got people that are capable of getting to the table and offering ways to fix it. I don't want any kid to fail. That's what's driven this whole district for years. There's things that can be done, but this is not one of them, in my opinion. And I've studied it, I've waited, and notice this. They know in December this was coming. They told us. And we can't get a bill they can agree upon. All the deal. When it goes to conference, we don't know what will come out of there. I mean, you can go back and look at similar issues and how they went through legislation and what the result. It really bothers me. And you know, are we perfect? No. And we'll never be perfect. But is this county willing to listen? I believe they are. And I'm hearing from more. I mean, it's been overwhelming in the past 5 days, especially. People do not want this. And you know, maybe this will be the thing that's going to wake people up. It may be a year cycle too late. I encourage people to voice their opinion. That is their God-given right as an American, as a Tennessean. And every opinion matters. We shouldn't be making decisions and legislation for 10% of the people. We should be listening. We should be learning. We should be bringing people together, not dividing. I've said from the get-go, this is a separation bill. It will separate your communities. It will separate the haves and have-nots. And I'm going to be quiet, but thank you for your support. I am bringing as a recommendation. And there's a lot of resolutions. There's a lot more you could say. It's going to come down to people speaking to the representatives. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We've discussed. Any other comments? Okay, if not, vote when ready.
While the vote's being cast, I just want to say one thing. I thank God that we got a director of schools that's willing to stand up and say what he believes and what he's in the best interest of the people that he's been put here to look over and nurture and shepherd. And that's our children. And Jeff, I am so proud of you for you having the guts to stand up and be as vocal as you have been on this issue right here. When there's a lot of other people that's just sat back and roll with the punches because they was afraid of the consequences that I was told by one of them one time to say, well, I don't know what I need to do because I don't want to lose my seat at the table. But you're not like that, Jeff, and I appreciate you.
I got worried just then because I wrote on the back of mine. Thank you. Okay. Oh, sorry. Passed unanimously.
Thank you for that. I will say, I've had several commissioners reach out to me. It got brought up in a couple education committees ago, and I've never done this, so forgive me for not knowing. In discussing with commission today and some committee leaders, Tennessee is operating our county on committee systems. Is that right, Mr. Jennings? So what has been determined, because I want everybody to have a say. You know, I'll be willing to get in the room and discuss this with anybody at any time. And so what has been decided, I think, is the ad hoc committee is going to schedule a meeting and invite the legislators. We stand up here, and I don't want them to think we're taking shots at them. They have a right as a legislator. So they're going to invite them. I will get you that date. It's not been finalized. It will happen pretty quick. And then we will discuss this in ad hoc, and then that could move it forward to a resolution from the county commission that they could vote up or down. And understand, I brought this to you as the board because I think this is your role. That county commission is the funding body. And so after it was explained to me today what needed to take place, I think that's a good move. Put it in an ad hoc committee, let everybody be there, let our legislators be there, and everybody get to question and have the concerns. So once